We're going to talk about the abduction and murder of Polly Klaas. Now, you may have heard of her because her dad has the Klaas Kids Foundation. Ever since what happened to his daughter, her dad has worked every single day to save other children. And actually, he looks into over 100 missing children every year, and 90% of those he recovers alive. And he does that every day, and he does that in the memory of Polly because he couldn't bring her home. Hang on 1 second. No, Ray, I don't want to battle. Let me just turn these battles off. Hang on 1 second. Tissue. She pulverised that carrot cake, didn't she? Oh, right. Okay. Hello, Raven. How are you? Okay. So on an ordinary October evening in 1993 in the quiet town of Petaluma in California, a place where kids rode their bikes and people left their doors unlocked, 3 girls were having a sleepover. Now, they were having a sleepover at the home of Polly Klaas. Her parents were divorced, but she spent time with both, and she had a really good relationship with her mum and dad. She was in her bedroom. They were 3 12-year-olds. They were painting each other's nails and talking. And her mum had a bit of a headache that night because her mum wasn't sleeping very well. Her mum had a migraine, and because all the girls were being so loud and playing pop music and giggling, her mum decided to take a sleeping tablet. Now, this sleepover had been one they'd been planning for over a month, and all 3 girls were so excited. Now, that night would become a night that would change American criminal justice forever. It was just after 10 p.m. The girls had watched 2 movies. They'd eaten ice cream, they'd eaten cake, they had listened to music, they painted each other's nails. When just after 10 p.m, a stranger slipped into the home through an unlocked window and went straight into the bedroom where the 3 girls were. He didn't yell, he didn't panic, he just said, "Don't scream." His name was Richard Allen Davis. He was a career criminal with a violent history of kidnapping. He tied all 3 girls up with torn strips of pillowcases, and then he got the girls to put pillowcases, what was remained of them, over their heads, and then he took one of them away, and that would be 12-year-old Polly Klaas from her own home. Now, in the next room, like I said, her mum was asleep. She'd taken a sleeping tablet, trying to get some sleep that night. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Sabrina. And in the bed with her mum was her little sister. And they didn't hear anything as Polly was taken from the home. Now, hours after the abduction took place, thank you everyone for the gifts, Davis was just minutes away from being caught. However, police let him go. Now, this is what I talked about a little bit the other day, but we really didn't get into the case. So a woman phones 911 and says that she sees a suspicious car stuck in a ditch on a nearby rural road that's going into a wooded area. And she says, like, this doesn't look right. Like, it's after 11 o'clock. This man is acting weird. His car's stuck in the mud. He's trying to head into this rural area. So officers arrive at the scene and find a dishevelled man, Richard Allen Davis, sweating, trembling, surrounded by rope, gloves and a duffel bag with items that just screamed, "I'm a kidnapper." Now, because at this point Polly's disappearance hadn't been put into a national system, police didn't know Polly was missing at this time. So they helped Richard out of the ditch and sent him on his way. And even on the paperwork, the police writ that he had ropes in his car, that he had gloves in his car, and that he smelled like he had been crawling around in mud. So at that point, there probably should have been some questions asked about where he was going and what he was doing. And we know at that point, he likely had Polly somewhere and he had kind of stashed her in the bush while he got the police to help him out of the mud. Then he went back and got her. Now, when it came to Polly being missing, the 2 girls went and woke up Polly's mum, screaming that she'd been taken by a stranger, and within hours, Polly's face was everywhere. Flyers flooded California. Her case was on America's Most Wanted, which will be the case we talk about next, which is run by John Walsh, who is one of the most famous people in the criminal justice system in America, due to the fact that you may recognise him. This is John Walsh here. And he is one of the most famous people because America's Most Wanted and all the work he does towards missing people, because his son Adam was taken, and it's going to be Adam's case we're going to do next. Thank you, G. Thank you so much. Now, what happened with Polly's case was it ignited one of the largest volunteer searches in US history. Everyone was looking for this little girl. Thousands combed forests, creeks, abandoned buildings. Celebrities joined the cause, including Winona Ryder, who was from the area. She's actually from Petaluma herself. And Winona Ryder offered £200,000, dollars, I should say, in order for Polly to be returned alive. You don't often see that celebrity stepping forward and offering such a huge amount of money. But she said, look, if you can bring her back alive, I'll just give you this money, but I want her returned. Now, time went on, 2 months passed, and Polly's father was one of the main people out there telling people, like, it's not too late, she can still come home alive. And he was full of hope. And we're going to read an interview with him in a minute, because the work he's done in Polly's name has been absolutely amazing for the Polly Klaas Foundation, Klaas Kids. Now, 2 months later, police detained Davis for unrelated parole violation. And during the investigation, they discovered fibres in his car matching those from Polly's bedroom. A strand of hair was found on the seat that belonged to Polly as well. And this is him here. This is Richard Allen Davis. So when pressed, Davis finally led investigators to a secluded spot near Highway 101, just 80 kilometres from Polly's home. And he pointed towards a piece of plywood on the floor. He said, lift up the plywood. And under that plywood lay the body of 12-year-old Polly Klaas. She had been horrifically sexually assaulted, that's as far as I'll go, because she's 12, and strangled, and she died on the night of her abduction. And in these cases, statistically, they're most likely to die within 8 hours of being taken, and this is what happened here. Now, the public outrage after waiting for so long for Polly to be found was volcanic. Literally, he had been released on 3 months before the kidnapping, despite 2 previous violent kidnappings against women, multiple sexual assaults, and a long history of drug-fueled attacks, where as soon as he would get drunk or drugged up, he would go out looking for his next victim. I get that as well, where people go, I'm just glad it was over for her soon, because he was only ever going to kill her, right? Even more, what horrified everyone was the fact the police had stopped him on the night when Polly was still missing and actually helped him out of a ditch down to the area where he would eventually leave her body. And a lot of people say, well, what could the police do? Well, if you'd looked him up on the system, you would have known he'd just got parole. He was still on probation. And then when you see this man who is inclined to do sex attacks, and he has gloves and ropes on his car, more should have been done. They should at least write Daisy, shouldn't they? They should have put his name into the system. Go, right, you're out on parole. You're on probation for sex attacks and violent encounters with women. Why have you got rope? Why have you got gloves? Where are you going down this derelict road? What are you doing? They should have asked more questions. Thank you, G. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts, guys. Even in the courtroom, Davis seemed determined to hurt as many people as possible. When he was in court, he would do the finger at Polly's family. He was smirking. And he even tried to say during the court that Polly had gone with him willingly and consented to what happened to her that night. The man is an absolute piece of shit. Notice how I've taken him off the screen because I just can't bear to talk about him. This was the home he took her from the sleepover, an everyday American home where she was literally having the sleepover of her life. And while he was trying to say in the court, like, she wanted to go with me, he was just smirking at her dad, just like, because, he was absolutely horrific. Everyone said, and all the headlines went mental for his final act of cruelty aimed at grieving parents. In 1996, he was sentenced to death, and he was transferred to San Quentin. He remains there today, protected by California's long-standing moratorium on executions. Polly's murder ignited a political earthquake. In 1994, California passed the 3 strikes and you're out law, mandating a minimum of 25 years to life for repeated offenders. It became one of the toughest sentencing laws in US history. Ironically, decades later, Polly's own sister publicly criticised the law, arguing that it swept too broadly, sending people over to prison for minor third offences like stealing pizza or shoplifting. And actually, she wasn't... Thank you, everyone, for the gifts. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, G. Thanks, Trisha. She actually wasn't saying they shouldn't have it for people like Polly's killer. She was just saying for shoplifting, it's ridiculous. And that's true, right? It should be for violent or sexual offences. If somebody is a prolific shoplifter or they may be even selling drugs, it could be because they're trying to feed their families. It could be for anything like that. It should be on like high level crime. Polly's father, Mark Klaas, refused to let his daughter's story end in tragedy. He founded the Klaas Kids Foundation, which, by the way, is just an amazing foundation. This is just the front screen of their website, which I think everyone should know more about this. And they're dedicated to the safety of all children, the recovery of missing children, and public policies that keep children safe in their communities. And they actually volunteer. They come out for searches. They publicise missing children. Like you can see there, report your child missing, and they come straight to the scene. They help search for these children. And like I said, they're recovering over. And this is Mark Klaas with Polly and his ex-wife. Now, since Polly died, her father has helped locate more than 10,000 missing children alive. He's found in her name. He has contributed to the expansion of national missing children databases. He has helped hone the Amber Alert system and make it more rapid. He has improved interagency communications. He has made many community volunteer search models that are still used today in everyday recovery of children. And Polly's story has fully... I need to get something on my phone. I'm not constantly fighting against a pen pot, don't I? There's so many questions left in Polly's case. What if the officers had arrested Davis that night as someone who had just been released? What if California had monitored repeat offenders more closely? What if one unlocked window hadn't given this predator the opportunity he wanted? In the end, though, Polly Klaas, as sadly as it is, didn't die in vain. Her dad has made sure of that, and he makes sure every day that he saves other children in her name. Tonight in Petaluma, the Klaas family home still stands. The bedroom window is gone, replaced years ago, but the ghost of that October still lingers. Polly's story is a reminder of the vulnerability of childhood and the failures of a broken system. She was just 12, but her legacy is bigger than any law book. It's written in the lives that she has saved. Sorry, I get really emotional when it's kids' cases. I want to go to this interview with her dad that I found today. It was on it's on a website called Grief Haven, and they kind of interview loads of different people. Hello, everyone. It's basically we're talking about Polly Klaas. So they said, they ask him, please tell us a little bit about you and Polly. My name's Mark Klaas and I'm the father of Polly Klaas. Polly was 12 years of age when on the evening of October the 1st, 1993, a bearded strangler wielded a knife and broke into her room while she was having a slumber party with two friends. He threatened the girls' lives and told them if they made a noise, he would slit their throats, and then he kidnapped my daughter. We spent 65 days searching for Polly before learning that a recidivistic, which means repeat offender, violent offender only recently paroled, had kidnapped, murdered her within 2 hours of her abduction. She was dead. He told his cellmates before getting out of prison that he wanted to avoid catching AIDS by always sleeping with young ones. That was his method of safe sex, to sleep with people who had not yet had sex, like virgins. It's absolutely disgusting. It says, this was a high profile case, so please talk to me about the initial feeling you had once they found Polly and you knew she wasn't coming home. He says, I had spent 65 days before learning Polly's fate as an extremely frightened individual. So very frightened for the safety of my daughter. Despite that, I did everything I could to convince myself, local people, the world, that we had a good chance of bringing Polly back alive. There are many people who are listening and who helped us, and day and night we had people with us. I succeeded in convincing myself and many others that we would find her and she was going to come home. At around 5 p.m. on December the 5th, 1993, the Petaluma Police Department, acting as a jurisdictional agency, called me to talk with the police captain. They had tears in their eyes and they said, Mark, you know she's not coming home, don't you? They told us Polly had been recovered and she wouldn't be coming home alive. They tried to convince me of this several times during the days leading up to this day, that I had to be ready, but I told them they were wrong. At that moment, my ex-wife broken down in tears and I was rather emotionless. The news really didn't do much to connect with me. I thought, well, this is the end of the game then. What do we do now? Then I asked if I could bring my wife, bring my family, bring in many volunteers. from the street and letting them all know myself that Polly wasn't coming home. They'd done so much to find her that I believe they should have heard it from me, not on the news. About 3 hours later, the enormity of what happened had struck me. Fortunately, there were a lot of men around because I went from being this passive, docile guy in one moment to a raving lunatic the next. I was grabbing things, breaking things and screaming at the top of my lungs. Someone had killed my baby. We spent the night in our home and it was just the saddest night I've ever had. God, it was just so sad. Oh. Oh. I want to go down to kind of what he's doing now and why. Oh. Says, what was your life like before Polly's death and what impact has her death had on your life now? Before Polly was murdered, I was getting to a place where I thought I had a perfect life. I had this unbelievable kid. I had this wonderful woman in my life. I had this fabulous job. After some tough years, everything seemed like it was going to be all right. Thank you guys for the gift. I even commented to my girlfriend Violet, this was about as perfect as it get. And then they took my daughter. I mean, for the first time... Oh, hang on, I want to go down to here. Let me just go. I don't want to go into that. Oh. Really lot. So he says, any parting words? I'll just read this bit because it's a really long interview. When your kid is kidnapped or dies, you become filled with a certain level of anger, certain levels of hate, certain levels of desperation. Over the course of time, you find ways to purge those feelings. You get back on track and you realise that people can share joy and that you can enjoy beauty once again. That's a fabulous thing because beauty really is what the meaning of life is. But you'll also have this part of you that dies when your child dies, and that never goes away. And what, like I said, what he has done has been absolutely amazing. In the face of grief and desperation, he has done so much to bring other children home because he couldn't bring Polly home. And I'm glad her killer's on death row. I don't know when he'll be put to death due to some of the laws going on now, and things keep changing with the murders, but I do believe that he should be put to death because this is, you know, what he's done here is brutal. Taking a girl out of her own home during a slumber party where she should have been happy and protected. She was 12 years of age.